Week 1 of college football is officially in the books, and man, do we have lots to talk about. We've done a recap of Florida State's dominant win over LSU on Sunday night, so in this video, we'll touch on that some, but we're also going to go over some of the big stories of opening weekend. For starters, the ACC definitely won the weekend. I know the Pac-12 went like 12 and 13 and 0, but they didn't play the matchups that the ACC did. It's cute to start off your season against San Jose State, but Florida State pulled out a massive win over a top 5 SEC team. North Carolina had a convincing win over South Carolina and had like 9 sacks or something crazy. Georgia and Bama both had cupcake openers as well, so in my opinion, the ACC was definitely the most impressive conference in Week 1. Now let's start with that Thursday night game with Florida going to Utah. Utah having a ton of players out, including their starting QB Cam Rising, but they also were without their starting tight end, a few offensive linemen, and they even lost their best player on defense early in that game. So do they flinch? Nope. Instead, the first play of the game is Utah embarrassing the Gators defense and taking a shot with like a 77-yard touchdown bomb, and it was essentially over before it even started. Utah didn't play a perfect game either by any means, which I think speaks more about the Gators at that point, who have one of the most talented rosters in all of college football, but can't even use it to beat a Pac-12 team that's severely injured. Florida looked bad, guys. Really bad. They looked sloppy, out of shape, out of sync, out of focus. I haven't seen something like that since the Willie Taggart days here at Florida State. Poorly coached, poorly disciplined. Mertz wasn't good. The offensive line isn't good. There was something like 15 false starts. I don't know. But what I do know is that they're in for a rough season if they can't straighten some of that out. Miami also opened up against a cupcake, and their whole schedule really is incredibly easy. They beat Miami of Ohio 38-3, and boy, did they let people know about it. I've never seen such a cocky team or cocky fan base after a mediocre win at best. And didn't they learn anything from last year when they opened up against Bethune-Cookman and then only went on to win 5 games? So they should pump the brakes, at least until A&M comes into town. But even outside of all of that, of course, it was only week 1, but I didn't find a single reason to be concerned about Miami this year. Now, real quick, I know Deion in Colorado is the big news, and everyone's jumping on the bandwagon, and they even got themselves ranked. But again, pump the brakes. TCU was bad. They were frauds last year, and they didn't even deserve to be ranked at 17 to start this season. It's still a good win for Colorado standards, a good win for Deion's first game. I didn't expect it still, and I definitely not with the offensive performance they had. But still, TCU is not good, and I don't think Colorado finishes the season ranked. One thing I will say is that Travis Hunter is a good football player. Who knows what could have been had he stuck with Florida State. But that's all news, just like Deion, so let's move on. Then, of course, Sunday night. Prime time, top 10 matchup, number 8 Florida State versus number 5 LSU for the second year in a row, this time in Orlando at Camping World Stadium. Now, I didn't go to the game. I watched it on the screen at the TV in the comfort of my own home, but I saw an absolutely packed stadium. I mean, Florida State fans really showed up and showed out for that one, and wow, what a game. What a massive win for Florida State here as they blow out top 5 LSU. They started out a bit rusty. They were actually down 3 at the half and then come out scoring each time they had the ball in the second half, going up 31 unanswered points. We've done a whole video breaking this game down and kind of reacting to it. I'll link that somewhere here. But all I'll say is that Florida State is for real, and this offense is elite. I do think LSU is a very good team and probably still a top 10 to 12 team in the country at least, but Florida State is just that good. So good, in fact, that the newest AP poll, Florida State is now the 4th ranked team in the entire country. It's been a minute, Noles fans. Hey guys, just got to interrupt the video real quick. Take a second and ask that if you're enjoying the Florida State content, you enjoyed that big win over LSU, please consider taking a second and clicking like and subscribing to the channel. It really means a lot. Now back to it. Now maybe the biggest story of the whole weekend, outside of Florida State routing LSU on Sunday night, Duke beat Clemson. And not with a last-minute field goal, not with some fluky play, not with Clemson missing a ton of key players. Duke just beat them. Now, this is a game where we got to see 2 opponents, and in all honesty, Duke just kind of outclassed Clemson straight up. I guess that lethal simplicity comment is the kiss of death, as Florida State fans know all too well. Duke didn't play a perfect game by any means, but they played a more physical game. They took better care of the football, and they found a way to capitalize and take advantage of Clemson's mistakes. I know there's a lot of hype for Cade Klubnik, and I do think he's got the talent, but in all honesty, he was the second best QB on the field that night. When we did our breakdown of FSU's schedule, we talked a little bit about this game, and especially after Duke's 2022 season, I thought for sure that Duke would play a tough game and give Clemson a run for their money, but I didn't truly expect the upset, and I definitely didn't think it would be a blowout. So, guys, what do you think this means for Florida State in the ACC picture going forward? Is Duke just much better than everyone thought? Does Clemson bounce back? At one point, we thought that Clemson game was going to be one of the hardest games of the schedule, if not the hardest games on the schedule for Florida State. But the two teams I saw this weekend, Clemson and Florida State, it's not even close. If Clemson plays that kind of game against Florida State, it's going to get ugly, and it's going to get ugly fast. Duke doesn't have Jared Verse or Braden Fisk. They certainly don't have a Keon Coleman or Johnny Wilson. And as good as Riley Leonard is, he's no Jordan Travis. So Clemson better try to get it figured out, because right now, there's blood in the water in the ACC, and Florida State has their sights set on winning this conference and punching a ticket into the college football playoff. It was also widely thought that Clemson and Florida State would face off twice this year, once in the regular season and then again probably in the ACC championship game. Now, I don't want to jump the gun or overreact by any means, because it is just week one, but now we have to question some things. Duke has already beaten Clemson, so now they'll have the tiebreaker if it comes down to it. But also, Drake May and UNC got a good win over South Carolina. Miami won, as much as I hate to say it. Louisville won, even though it wasn't their best game. But Clemson is now tied for last place in the ACC. Now, of course, they won't stay down that far, but starting off the season with a blowout conference loss on your shoulders makes it significantly harder for them to get back to the conference championship. Can they bounce back? Absolutely. And I think they'll try to play their Super Bowl when Florida State comes into town. But the ACC race just got shaken up in a big way. So what does all this mean for FSU and the rest of their season? Again, it's only week one, but that's what week ones are all about, right? Overreacting. So that Clemson game looks so much more winnable now than it did a week ago, because Clemson looked downright bad against Duke. And Duke didn't look fantastic either. So this just all made it that much more likely that Florida State gets their shot and could possibly make an undefeated playoff run. Now, on the other hand, that Duke game is looking much more interesting than it did back in the summer. Tickets for that one are like $25 right now, and it's got me considering moving some plans around in October. I still feel confident that Florida State makes the ACC championship, like we mentioned in an earlier video. But as far as who we're going to be playing in that game, I think at this point it's largely up for grabs with no divisions in the ACC. Could it be Clemson still? Could we actually get Duke or UNC in that game? We'll have to see how it all goes, how it plays out, of course. But man, it feels good to be a Florida State fan after watching everything from this first week of college football. And you got to feel great about what this team could go on to accomplish. So what's your official predictions for FSU season at this point? What was the best moment of week one? Let me know in the comments, and let's talk Noles.